This podcast is sponsored by nobody.
Don't be a scaredy cat. It's Janice Blythe. Ruby from the Hills Have Eyes. And you're listening to Tommy Throwback Kovac on Splat from the Past. So just tune in and have a spectacular Halloween.
Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be welcoming Daniel Holzman. Daniel was the little boy Chris in the 1974 Larry Cohen horror cult classic It's Alive, celebrating its 50th anniversary. And we are going to dive into the minutia of that movie today. Daniel, of course, grew up to be one half of the Raspyni Brothers, the juggler duo. I used to see them on an evening at the Improv and shit when I was a kid. I used to see them all the time, and it's going to be a great conversation today. I can't wait. 7 fucking years I've been doing this podcast. It's great. Life is great. My dad's visiting today. He'll be here a week. I am so blessed. So blessed. I need a you. Dun, 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 dun. It's freaking awesome. Rest in peace, John Grismer. Oh my God, he directed Scalpel and Blood Rage. I had him on back in 2020. He was a strange, interesting guy. He lived 91 years. Rest in peace, John Grismer. Also, rest in peace, John Ashton, Taggart in the Beverly Hills Cop movies. I tried for years to get him on here, but I couldn't make the connection. Rest in peace, John Ashton. A Late Supper. Also, rest in peace, Chris Christopherson, fellow Matty O'Bearcat, a true original in the country music arena and acting. So many great movies he did. Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, A Star is Born, 1976, Convoy, Semi-Tough, Rollover, Songwriter, Flashpoint, Big Top Pee-wee, Millennium, the Blade movies, etc. I mean, the guy lived a life. He was a true legend. Rest in peace, Chris Christopherson. So yeah, here is my interview with Daniel Holzman. Hey, Daniel, welcome to the show. How are you today, sir?
Good, thanks, Tommy. Happy to be on your show.
Awesome. Yes, I can't tell you what a great honor this is. Thank you so much for taking the time today. So going back in time, you were obviously a kid actor. What age did you start gravitating toward acting?
I was probably 10 or 11. I was in a kids' drama school. There was a small theater in Sherman Oaks where I was taking classes. So I probably got into it maybe a year before the movie. So I think I'd been in the school about a year by the time the movie came.
Yeah,
I was about 10 or 11 when I got started.
Were your parents in the business?
No, but I was always interested in show business. I love movies and comedy and just acting. And I guess I had the bug at an early age.
Yeah. Did you do any school plays or community theater?
Yeah, I mean, I was in school plays. I went to an acting camp called Isamata, the Idlewild School of Music and the Arts. I went there for 2 summers. But that was like the year after I did the movie. But I didn't have like much training. I think the only thing I had was this kids theater group. That's where they saw me, and that's where an actor came who was in the movie. He played one of the detectives.
Right.
I don't remember his name. But he came to watch the group, and I was the right age. You know, they're looking for a young kid my age, and that's where they saw me.
You didn't do any commercials or anything like that?
No, what I did was after the movies, I became a professional juggler.
Right.
So I was in show business for 45 years, but I fell in love with juggling, and that became my career. I got on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and we toured with celebrities like Robin Williams and Billy Crystal. So I had like a 45-year career in the variety field. So I didn't do movies. It just was my passion to become a juggler. So that's what I did, is I became a professional juggler.
I watched you guys on an evening at the Improv when I was a kid.
Yeah, our act was called the Raspyni Brothers.
Yeah.
And we were pretty successful during the 80s and 90s doing a lot of the shows that were on in those days, like Comic Strip Live, Meeting at the Improv, Caroline's, you know, Comedy
Yeah.
on the Road. There was quite a few during the comedy boom. So I probably did like 80 or 90 TV appearances during that time.
Right. So how do you get cast in It's Alive? Was it just a standard audition?
Well, no, like I say, the guy came in and saw me in the acting group, and then I went to Larry Cohen's office
Hmm.
and just read for him, just me and him, and maybe the other guy was there too. And I don't remember it being very much more than just reading the part and him going like, "Okay, that's fine, you got the part." I mean, there wasn't any, no callbacks or anything. I just read for him and he gave me the part.
Wow. What was he like as a director then? Because, I met him in 2017, and I don't know if you ever saw him again after the movie, but by the time I met him, he was very bitter and self-loathing and resentful towards the industry. Like, you couldn't even give him a compliment. I told him how much I love his writing and his movies, and he just told me to shut up.
That's funny. No, he was good. I was just talking to my sister because she asked, "Oh, what do you actually can remember? So long ago." I
Yeah.
remember he was really show busy. I remember one thing he said to me was they wanted me to cry for one scene, but I wasn't that kind. I wasn't that good of an actor. So the woman Sharon Farrell actually struck me in the face to try to get me to cry,
Oh, yeah.
which I don't know if that was a proper acting technique. It didn't bother me or anything. I'm not complaining. But then he goes, just throw some water in the kid's puss. That'll make it look like he's crying. I still remember he said, throw some water in the kid's puss. Which I thought was a very funny way of saying, the kid's face.
Yeah, the puss. A lot of people forget that you people used to refer to the face as the puss.
Yeah, he struck me as a real show busy. He seemed like a happy guy. He seemed like a fun guy.
Hmm.
He was good to me. I remember him being nice to me and just being kind of fun. So I didn't get any of the grumpiness or the the disgruntlement. This was maybe pretty early still, whatever, before he got totally shafted. But
Yeah, that was.
yeah, I thought he had a pretty good atmosphere on the set, as I remember.
Yeah, he was a character. That guy. I'll send you our picture later. It's,
Yeah,
it's it's something I cherish greatly.
I contacted him once years later because I had written a script,
Hmm.
and I don't think I even got through to him or didn't really have much contact. But that was years later, so I never had really much contact with him after the premiere because we did go to the premiere.
Yeah, it's sad how someone can start out a certain way and then end up another way. It's show business is what it is. Now there were some great adult actors that were in this movie: Sharon Farrell, Guy Stockwell, Andrew Dugan, William Wellman Jr. Any good stories about them that stand out?
Yeah, I remember, like I say, Sharon Farrell, who's still a Facebook friend. I remember her, like I say, like trying to get me to cry, and then she wanted me to slap her back,
Yeah.
which I did. And she goes, "Wow, that was really hard." So I remember I gave her quite a good smack in the face.
She
As it
passed
came
away,
out.
right?
No, I didn't know that. Did she pass away?
Yeah, last year.
Oh, I did not know that. We occasionally would Facebook, occasionally, but we weren't like friends or anything. And it's like, hey, remember me? I was that 11-year-old kid, back in It's Alive days. But she accepted my friendship thing, and we chatted a couple times.
Oh,
So
that's
I'm sorry
cool.
to hear that she passed because I liked everybody. Uh, everybody was nice to me during that time. So
Yeah, I've
I
talked
remember Jim
to.
Ryan gave me some good advice. He said,
Uh,
I was riding a bike that had no seat on it. It was just like a post.
yeah.
He's like, you might not want to ride that bike. You're kind of risking an important part there. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe you're right. So yeah,
I
it was fun, man. It was like a 9 days, 10 days. It wasn't like a long thing, but it was pretty intense for being a young kid like that, and just sort of being thrown into a movie. It was a very enjoyable experience for me.
Yeah, I've talked to Andrew Dugan's son Richard. He was close with Larry, and I talked to William Wellman's sister Sissy recently, coincidentally. Yeah, I mean, what I love about the movie is that it's one of three horror movies I can think of that are really scary and gory, yet it's PG because it doesn't go over the line.
I remember I wanted the puppet, that doll. That was a Rick Baker
Yeah.
creation. And I asked him, I said, hey, can I have that when we're done? He's like, that cost me $10,000. You're not getting that. And plus, they had to like blow it up at the end too. I
Wow.
remember seeing it because, do you want to see the baby? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, wow, that thing is cool, because it was really a really well made, prop. I guess it cost him about $10,000. That's what he told me.
Yeah, wow, $10,000. That's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
this was early on in his career. You know, I think he had just done makeup with Dick Smith on The Exorcist, which was another Warner Brothers horror movie. And the funny thing is, I read that Warner Brothers didn't believe in the movie. It barely got released. Is that what happened?
Well, yeah. I mean, it wasn't a good. I didn't think it was a good movie. I remember we went and saw the premiere, and my brother and I were howling with laughter about how ridiculous some of the scenes were. Like when they're throwing stakes into the cars or something. Or
Yeah,
so, I didn't take it very seriously. I know it's become kind of a cult classic, and it's definitely spawned some sequels.
yeah,
I think it's just more about like just kind of the kitschy nature of the whole idea of it, like a baby being born mutated with claws and fangs and kills everybody in the operating room. It was a pretty out there concept, So
yeah. I'm sure the baby wasn't very scary up close. That's probably why you wanted it.
no, it was cool looking though, but I think they kept it kind of like the way they had the shots of it. If you'd gotten a really good look of it, you would have thought like, well, that's ridiculous. Nothing looks like that. But from the angles and stuff, and like they had it looking up through the gutter or something. Yeah, it
Hmm.
was really well made though. Obviously Rick Baker, top guy of the field of the special effects. So,
Yeah. Did you
but
know that?
unfortunately, I was not able to keep the "It's Alive" baby.
Yeah. Did you know that the movie was so low budget that Larry had to use footage from Hell Up in Harlem, his previous movie, to put in this movie?
Oh, I didn't know about that. Like I say, we remember we went and saw the preview or
Yeah.
the premiere, and obviously, I had never been to a premiere or seen a movie put together like that. Um, but it was a very enjoyable experience. Like I said, he struck me as a guy who knew what he was doing and had a good nature to him,
Hmm.
and was obviously a schlockmeister
Yeah.
to some degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He had that kind of like, who's like a Roger Corman. He seemed to have that like that make it work mentality.
Hmm.
So I remember liking him. Like I said, I was just a kid, but he made me feel welcomed and part of the scene. So I liked it.
Yeah, he was great at social commentary too in his writing. I mean, he did that Western series, Branded, with Chuck Connors, in which Chuck Connors got him fired from the show after he found out that the show was about the blacklist. Metaphorically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even It's Alive had sort of a environmental message, right? It
Yeah.
was it was all the toxins and all the pollutants and all the radioactivity that were causing babies to be mutated. So there was some kind of social commentary to it, even though it was obviously not the main point of it.
Right.
So, you know,
You have a
and he had
favorite?
a long career. I mean, it wasn't a great career, but he had his moments, and he was known even that time. I know about him now. I
Yeah.
did some research and found out like, wow, this guy really had quite an interesting career.
The
That was
movie
a
he
small footnote in.
probably the other horror movie that he's known for the most is The Stuff, about this frozen yogurt that eats you after you eat it. And
Ah,
when I met him at that convention, he was for about 2 years up to that point, he was selling all of his stuff cups that he kept in his closet for 30 years, and I was lucky to get one from the last batch of it, and I got it signed by him and Paul Sorvino and Lorraine Landon. It was just amazing. It's one of my most prized possessions.
I remember he made some movie. I think it was called Q.
Yes.
Is that right? About
Q,
a prehistoric bird.
yeah, Q the Winged Serpent.
Yeah,
David
yeah. No,
Carradine's.
I remember doing some research because I looked back. I thought, who was this Larry Cohen guy? Like that was a weird. Because like I say, after that, I got out of acting,
Hmm.
and I was still involved in show business. But I had that one experience, and I thought, who was that? Who was that guy? So I did some research. I found out about him. I thought, oh, that's really interesting. He had this whole sort of B movie career.
Yeah, did you ever watch his show, The Invaders,
No, no.
with Roy Innes?
Like I
Yeah.
said, that was my only interaction with him was after the premiere. One time, years and years later, I'd written a script called Scratcher,
Uh
about an evil tattoo artist, and was trying to get some traction in the industry, but never got anywhere with that. So
I think Larry could
stuck
have
with the
made.
juggling.
I think Larry could have made that movie. That's awesome.
Oh, for sure, for sure. The tagline was "Your flesh is his canvas." He would kidnap people to use their flesh for his twisted works of art. Yeah, I thought, yeah, that seems up his alley. So, if any listener there wants to make a movie about a twisted tattoo artist, I still have the script sitting in my drawers.
Did
I
you
had a
have?
great career. I really enjoyed my career in show business. I'm retired now.
Hmm.
I still work. I mean, I would still work, but I feel retired, from the business. I'm 62, but
Do you have a?
a 62-year-old juggler is kind of an anomaly.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite kill in the movie?
Let's see. I think that I guess the milkman, because
Sa-
I enjoyed the
Same here.
scene of the milk and blood mixing together and running down the street. I thought that was a nice shot.
Yeah.
Like the milk and blood. That was a good way to say, oh yeah, you got killed in a bloody fashion without showing it.
I love that.
So
Yeah, it's funny because you see a streaming flow of blood and milk, and again going back to that PG thing. I mean, if it had been more graphic, if you had actually seen the guy being cut, it would have been an R
yeah.
rating. You know?
I don't remember being very graphic at all. I remember like the
No.
scenes they would show like the aftermath a lot, like when they showed like the operating scene or something, like after the birth. It was more like, look at the slaughter this baby left. I think it might have been hard to like show the baby back in those days actually committing these gruesome murders.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of a green screen or whatever effects it would have to have to. So I think they showed mostly the aftermath of what the havoc the baby caused.
Yeah, and of course, years later, the Child's Play movies came about, which was about a doll, but it was still kind of like the same idea, you know.
Like those movies, like the first one especially. I thought, who was that? Brad Renfro? Is that actor?
Brad Dourif.
Oh yeah. He was also in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right?
Oh, yes, he was so good in that.
Yeah,
He
he
should
played
have
Billy
got
Babbitt.
he should have got the Oscar that year. I love George Burns, but George Burns was playing George Burns in the Sunshine Boys.
Yeah, great performance. It really made you care about him. He's had a lot of empathy. Of course, in that role of Child's Play, man, he really captured that one, didn't he? He really chewed that one
Yeah,
up. So
he was
that was a
great.
much better movie than it had to be. That and the movie Fright Night, which came around about the same time. I
Same
remember thinking,
director.
oh, those movies are better than they had to be.
Yep, same director, Tom Holland, who I've met. Very
Was that the
nice
same
man.
director? Oh,
Yeah,
that's funny because they were both really good genre movies. I thought Fright Night, especially with Roddy McDowell and whoever played the vampire, I forget. He was a very good-looking actor.
Oh, William Ragsdale.
Oh,
Oh,
wasn't? I don't think
no,
it was
no,
William
no.
Ragsdale.
Chris Sarandon. Chris Sarandon. Sorry.
Yeah, Chris Sarandon. Yeah. Because he was like he was a very handsome vampire type. So
Yes.
yeah, that was around the same time as Child's Play. I forget what other movies came out around the same time as It's Alive.
That was at the time of like Black Christmas and Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That's around the same time as like the Dirty Harry movies, stuff like that. Even though those aren't horror, because I remember seeing those when I was a kid, like when I was 13 or 14,
Yeah.
going to see Dirty Harry, thinking, "Wow, that's a pretty mature movie." To go see.
My dad.
But when I saw Deliverance around the same age, I think I saw Deliverance too around 13. I thought, "Wow,
Yeah.
okay,
My dad and I used to
that's an
watch.
eye opener."
My dad and I used to watch the Dirty Harry movies when my mom wasn't home.
Yeah, those were good movies too. Excellent movies. That was a great time in the cinema, the 80s, 70s and 80s.
Now we know how inaccurate IMDb is, but did you do any other movies or maybe TV series after this movie?
No, man, I tell you, I really got into juggling. It became my
Mhm.
passion. I started a professional juggler at 17, so I left home at
Yeah.
17. So there's only a few years in between, the end of that movie and when I became a full-time performer. Just becoming a juggler was so much easier. The access, being able to get the gigs.
Yeah.
I really didn't want to go audition. I really didn't feel I would be good at doing auditions.
Yeah.
Um, so I really went with what was available to me. And I think that the combination of being a comedy juggler, I liked comedy. I grew up with like Woody Allen and, Robert Klein and guys like that. And I liked juggling, but I thought jugglers were too, like all I saw were like Vegas jugglers. Then you
Yeah.
start seeing these comedy jugglers that combine comedy and juggling. The best example is a guy named Michael Davis,
Oh yeah.
who became a pretty well-known performer for the president and got on Saturday Night Live. And so we came out after him. When I saw that, I thought, wow, comedy juggling, that's my fit. And I had a really successful career for like 45 years as a comedy juggler. So I was in show business, but just not in the movies. But I worked with lots of, Dana Carvey and Roseanne Barr and Howie Mandel and Billy Crystal and Robin. So I worked with all the big comics of the 80s.
Right.
Because, our act was funny, but it wasn't topical. So the comedians really liked working with us. So we got to really do a lot of work with showbiz celebrities, but as the support act, not as the headliners.
Yeah, did you guys like play all the LA comedy clubs like the Comedy Store and stuff?
Yeah, but by the time we came around, headlining comedy clubs was not the most profitable way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
There was only a small time when the comedy boom was at its peak where we could headline comedy clubs and it would be enough money for us. The most money we made was in the corporate market. Like once we got on TV and had like TV credits and had credits with celebrities, that opened up the corporate market because we were able to put together a very successful package, a promotional reel with like Johnny Carson on it and President Reagan on it and celebrities. And that allowed us to get into the corporate field at about a 10,000 per show rate. So, I was doing juggling shows making about 10,000 per show. So we were splitting that. So, a good month I'd make $30,000 or $40,000. So it was a very profitable career. Didn't last that long. That peak. But, I had a good 15 years where I made quite a bit of money as a juggler.
When I listened to you and Barry on the Carson podcast, you guys mentioned opening for Robin Williams and Billy Crystal. Tell me about those experiences. They must have been just an honor.
Well, yeah, because Billy Crystal saw us on the Tonight Show. He was going out on tour. I think he thought, wow, that's perfect. They're funny, but they don't do jokes. Like they don't do stuff I want to talk about. And then Robin Williams had the same management. And I thought Billy Crystal had the most professional show. Like of all the comedians I worked with, I thought he was the best because his act was very solid. Like it was a really headline set. Like just had skits, had audience participation, had impressions, had dancing, just the full gamut. Like he was really a great showman. Robin Williams, I thought, was the best, but it was kind of hit or miss, right? He'd have good nights and bad nights. But the funny thing is, he was Bobby McFerrin was his opening act.
Yeah.
And they said, look, Bobby McFerrin sometimes gets chanted off the stage. Like they start chanting, Robin, Robin. And so we want you to do like 25, 30 minutes because then we want an intermission. But if you only give us like 5 or 10 minutes, if they start chanting, we understand you'll have to get off the stage. And so we got out there, and Robin Williams even introduced us, which was awfully nice, you know what I mean? So from backstage, he's like, hello, these good American boys, the Russians, the blah, 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 just doing this whole spiel. Welcome, my friends, the Raspyni Brothers.
Yeah.
So people were kind of excited, which was nice. And we killed it. We did our whole set. Because by that time, we had worked Renaissance fairs and clubs, and we were a pretty seasoned act, used to hard situations. And just killed it. And then we became his opening act like the next 7 years, off and on. But it was just sporadic. Maybe a total of 20 dates or something, because he was making movies. But every once in a while he would do a couple of colleges, or he went and did Reno. One time we did Reno with him. But he was one of the best. I think that the nicest was Gary Shandling and Dana Carvey.
Yeah.
As far as just being the nicest celebrities, the worst was Roseanne Barr.
Yeah. I heard you actually mention that in the interview too, that Roseanne wasn't a very pleasant experience.
Well, because she made us change our act. She was the only one that made us change our act. Because she was doing poorly. She would be heckled. This was around the time she did that Star Spangled Banner, when she sang the Star Spangled Banner really badly.
Oh, yeah.
It was a moment, years ago that the media really picked up on. And her story was that she was an opening act that got famous, right? She had a good 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And she opened for Julio Iglesias. Then she got famous. But she never really worked on her act. So she was basically famous with not a good headline act. So she'd go out there and people would start heckling her because it wasn't good,
Mm-hmm.
But then she started claiming she was being heckled because we brought up volunteers in our act. That somehow we broke the fourth wall. That's why she was being heckled. But Tom Arnold would go between us and her. So we'd go on, then Tom Arnold would go on, then she would go on. So she was going on like 40 minutes later than us, but she was still blaming us for doing poorly. So she made us cut out the volunteer bit. And then we were still getting good reviews, and she made us cut more. And so by the end, we were doing like 10 minutes, from 30 to 10, because she just didn't like the fact that we were doing better than her. So
yeah,
I thought she was only smart enough to think about herself.
yeah.
What's in it for me? It's all about me. I didn't care for her at all. No,
Yeah,
not a fan.
that's the insecurity of comedians, unfortunately.
Well, also she was doing poorly. I think it must have been. We got good reviews. I remember one review said, "Our advice is get there early and check out the opening act, and then lower your expectations as low as they'll go." So I got to see her reading that, thinking, "Oh, they liked you." That's what she said. They liked you.
Yeah.
And that was her attitude. Like, oh, they liked you. They didn't like me. So therefore, I got to change what you're doing. Yeah. We had a lot of nice experiences. Got to meet like Sammy Davis Jr. and Bill Cosby. Of course, I didn't like Bill Cosby even back in the day, but
yeah,
he was a big star. Met George Burns and Walter Matthau and Tony Bennett. I was really big on the old school guys, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So they were open for Sinatra. That would have been cool. Never met Sinatra, but met like a lot of the old school guys, Donald O'Connor, you know. And I like those guys. And by the time that came around, a lot of people didn't know who they were anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these older performers have just vanished. People don't know who they are anymore. So
yeah, sad. I remember you told one story about when you were opening for Billy Crystal, Gregory Hines made an appearance.
Yeah, that was cool because I always liked tap dancing for some reason. I even studied tap dancing.
Yeah.
And we did our show, and there was a brief intermission. There's a knock on our door, and then he shows up at our door just wearing like this white beater T-shirt. I don't know if you call them white beaters anymore. I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah.
They kind of T-shirts just with a
tank top.
straps, you know?
Tank top.
What's that?
It's called a tank top.
Yeah, like a tank top. Yeah, but once again, showing my age, it used to be called like a white beater. So, I don't know where that came from. But I remember thinking, man, that dude looks like a greyhound, like just like sinewy, right?
Yeah.
And he came back and goes, just want to say what a great show you did. Just took that effort to come back and just compliment us and knock on our door, just let us know he liked what we did. And I just was really impressed by how he looked. Because, you really don't think about him as a muscular guy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, wow, that's a dancer's physique. Yeah, he looked like a dancer, for sure.
Yeah, because
we got to meet, like, other people would come backstage, like Andrew Agassi came back with Brooke Shields one time. And they were with Judd Nelson from the Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
So I got to meet a lot of celebrities, which I loved because I love celebrities. I love show business. So I loved being in show business, even in that kind of smaller scale, being a variety artist.
Yeah, I remember you guys were on this this really bad special that John Lovitz did called the Please Watch the John Lovitz Special. Yeah.
Yeah, we were on. That was pretty bad. It's funny because John Lovitz went to the same school I did.
Oh, yeah.
So we had that in common. We both went to this place called Harvard Preparatory School. And can you swear on this program?
Of course. Fuck yeah.
Okay, because one time his manager was in there, and John Lovitz had just used the bathroom or something. He goes, "You smell that? That's star shit." That's the smell of star shit. I'm like, John Lovitz?
That's a typical Lovitz line, too. That's star shit.
No, that's star shit. I'm like, all right. Yeah, it was a tough one because it was something about a baseball team, and it was like an old-fashioned.
The Giants, San Francisco Giants, which is my team.
Yeah, it didn't really come together. It was fun. It was fun to do because it was kind of a nice ensemble. I think was in that was Christopher Titus.
Yeah.
I think was in that.
Is Richard?
I remember I opened for him at another show. I remember seeing him years later, thinking, "Oh, that's the guy that." Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was someone else. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else.
Yeah, because it had Richard Belzer, Ed O'Neill, Rob Reiner, and others I can't think of. But it was a pretty good cast for a bad special.
Yeah, not that we worked with. Yeah, that must have been different because they weren't the days we were working. They must have been did cameos or something because we mostly working with the baseball team, we were juggling baseball players.
Mm-hmm.
So it was bad. It was bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I've done
thought,
worse shows, but that was a bad one.
yeah.
We did one for the Playboy channel. That was a fun one, where we
Oh,
were supposed to be juggle around a woman and then cut off her top
yeah,
while we juggled,
yeah.
and that was fun. It didn't work, but so they had us just cut off her clothes before we juggled, and then juggle around her as when she was topless.
Wow, I wish I
For the
could see
Playboy
that.
channel.
It was on the Playboy channel back then.
Yeah, yeah. Who knows where that went to? As far as the archives of showbiz history. But yeah, got to pass around a topless woman, and she was a Playboy playmate, so she had those, Playboy boobs.
And it should be noted, you two met at what was it, a Renaissance fair or something?
Who? Me and Barry?
Yeah.
Oh no, we met at a juggling. We actually met at a park,
Oh, okay.
Sherman Oaks. There was a Sherman Oaks park, and I was juggling, and he went by with a friend of his. No, actually, I met his friend. I met his partner, who was named Mike Boyer. He actually already had a team juggling act,
Mm-hmm.
and then so I met him. I met his partner first, and became friends with them as a team. I was a solo, and then I was doing solo work. They were doing team work. Then he got a chance to do a show out in Chicago, in Kenosha, Wisconsin, just for free, like just to pass the hat.
Mm-hmm.
And his partner's like, I'm not doing that. And he asked me if I wanted to do it. I'm like, I'll do it. So we drove cross country purely to pass the hat at some fair. And that was the start of our career, because it was supposed to be just one show. We ended up going for the whole summer. And that started like a 36-year career for the two of us.
Wow.
And then when we broke up, I worked like another 8 years as a solo. So I worked a few years before we teamed up, and then like 8 years afterwards. So I had about a 45-year career total, from like 17 to 62 was my career as a juggler.
That's
And I still
amazing.
juggle. I still practice every day, but the opportunities aren't there that much for me anymore. So I'm not sure where I'm going to go with it in the future.
Yeah, so like now that you're retired, like what do you got going on these days?
Well, I really became a very good pickleball player, and I became a pickleball coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I became a very good pickleball player. I did that for a couple of years, but it was thrashing my arm too much. And I realized that I couldn't juggle and play pickleball to the level I was playing. So I chose juggling. So I only play a couple times a week. So I had to quit coaching, and now I just play a couple times a week recreationally.
Mm-hmm.
But for like 2 years, I was playing 5-6 days a week, 3 or 4 hours a day of pickleball. So I got pretty crazy about pickleball. So, and now I'm trying to combine the two, and thinking about a way to kind of create a very entertaining pickleball seminar, where I use like the paddles and balls, and do trick serves, kind of like a Harlem Globetrotter-esque pickleball show. I'm kind of working on that as a project.
Nice. Maybe it's time to write. Maybe it's time to write that book. Juggling through show business or something.
Yeah, I've written like 4 books. I've written a couple of novels. I've written a couple of screenplays. I've invented a toy that got sold in Walmart.
Nice.
That I made 6 figures on. So I have my hands in lots of different things. I just try to keep being creative.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into investing, so I was able to invest and set up my retirement. So I got into that for a little bit. And now I don't do that anymore. I just set it up, and now I just live off my investments.
Yeah. What was the toy you created?
It was. If you've ever heard of the kendama, you know the kendama?
Of course. Yeah.
It's a Chinese toy. So mine was called the ring dama. So I thought, what about a kendama you could wear like a ring? So mine was like a ring with a cup, with a ball and string attached to it, as you wore on your finger, and it had like side angles so you could catch on the side. So it was like a kendama you could wear on your finger. So I called it the ring dama. And this company called Zing Toys, I went to Toy Fair in New York City, and there was a company called Zing Toys. And I was losing a lot of money on this toy. I put like $20,000 into it. So I knew I had to sell it to make any money. And they were fortunately making a line of pocket-sized skill toys that were illuminated, that had lit up. And so they thought, wow, yours would fit perfectly into our line of toys. And they could use a pre-existing ball they already had made for a different toy. So they decided to make my toy electronic. So they bought the rights to it, and they called it the Zing Dama.
Yeah.
And they sold $1 million worth to Walmart, and I was getting 5%. So my first check was for $54,000. I thought, holy moly, this is going to be my $1 million idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next check was like 12,000, and then 7,000, and then 3,000, and then nothing. So I made a little over 100,000 on it. So after expenses, I probably made about 80,000. But
Nice.
I was looking at a big loss, so I'm glad they bought it and I was able to make some money on it. So, but I thought, wow, now I'm a toy inventor, not realizing that it was just really lucky. Over and over again, I realized how lucky I've been with timing in my career.
Yeah.
Like as a juggler and as a performer, getting into the comedy boom of the 80s. There's the Johnny Carson show. Jugglers could get on TV and not be judged.
Yeah.
Because now you have to be like on America's Got Talent, or some show where they're going to basically, if they don't like what you're doing, going to embarrass you or make it look as you did bad or whatever it is. You're no longer going to just get on and do your act.
Right.
It has to be part of a storyline of overcoming adversity or whatever. But we came up through this time where we got on a lot of TV.
Mm-hmm.
There's no more opening act market at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no opening act market. So we went through that market, that died. Then the corporate market died after 2008. It really died in 2001 after 9/11.
Yeah.
But 2008 it really took a big hit. And there's only a couple of jugglers still working the corporates. The one that is probably the most successful, they're called the Passing Zone.
Yeah.
And they're probably the only duo still working at a pretty high level as jugglers in the corporate market. So I'm really thinking that timing really was very fortunate. And now that I'm 62, work has kind of dried up, but I'm like, oh, well then I guess I'll just retire. So but I had a really nice run. I made a nice amount of money, and was able to put some away and invest it. And now, like I said, I'm just feeling pretty satisfied with my career, but still looking for new things to do. Like I do my own podcast. I have a podcast I do.
Oh, yeah.
Where I interview jugglers. I've done 132 episodes of that. It's called Drop Everything.
Yeah.
I interview professional jugglers.
I listened to some of the older interviews recently.
Yeah, got some interesting people. I got obviously some big juggling stars, but also some people just have interesting stories, who are juggler. Like I talked to a guy the other day, he's called the Teton juggler. And he combines juggling with like skiing and mountain bike stunts. So he'll do like these big jumps while he's juggling and like throw the club really far and do like a 360 and try to catch the club and keep juggling. So he's combined juggling with skiing and juggling with slacklining. I thought, well, that's interesting. So he says juggling and skiing is called scuggling. So if you're going to ask you, what's it called when you juggle on skis? It's called scuggling.
Yeah. How often do you...
It's been great to be in show business all these years and be able to meet celebrities and to be part of it, but yet kind of like on the offshoots of it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, I always say I'm at the little kids' table of show business.
Yeah.
And I'm still there. I'm still at the party.
Oh yeah.
I'm at the little kids' table. Yeah.
How often do you drop new episodes?
Once a month.
Once a month.
Yeah, I'm sponsored by the International Juggling Association. They give me a small stipend to do it, but they only pay for like 1 month. It's not. I wouldn't say it's pay. It's like it's nothing.
Nice. Well, Daniel, I thank you so much for coming on today, and I'm glad that life is good for you, and I hope you keep on creating and keep on doing your podcast. It's awesome.
Well, thanks for keeping It's Alive, and thanks for keeping Larry Cohen's name alive, because
absolutely,
yeah, he deserves it, man. He was a real showbiz character, and I imagine there's not that many people in the mainstream who are thinking about Larry Cohen.
No.
So I'm glad you're doing this, and I'm glad you're giving him some props.
My pleasure, sir. You have a great day.
You too. Thanks, Tom. Later, bud.
Later. Okay. Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Daniel Holzman. Ain't he a cool dude? Nice guy, huh? I'm so glad that we could have that conversation. A man who is blessed, very blessed. Go check out his podcast, Drop Everything. It's really entertaining. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.